Howdy folks, Rudrose here, and today we are talking about this dragon. I am the guardian of lost souls. I am the powerful, the pleasurable, the indestructible Mushu. So, Ruby Steel has been a deck idea for quite a long time, and it's never really come to a huge fruition. Usually one of its biggest issues was it lacked card draw. However, I can say with 100% certainty, it finally got a card that... This is probably one of the best designed cards in this set 7, that it just everything about it works, and they didn't over design it and they didn't under design it. Its stats are fine for a 5 cost. It's inkable, so it doesn't hurt you there. And it does what these colors want to do. It fits the challenger deck, but it actually helps the deck, one, by keeping your challengers alive with the resist 2, and 2, helping you keep up in lore. That has always been Lorcana's biggest problem, is that if you are chasing the other player, then you are constantly challenging them, and you don't have any time to quest on your own because you're having to answer everything they put out. But Mushu rewards you for that and says, actually, you can win the game simply by challenging them. And despite not technically having an on-entry effect when you play him, because he essentially has 2 field effects, it feels like he has an on-entry effect that as long as you have people out who can attack, you play him right on turn 5, boom, suddenly you're getting back into the game by challenging. I was so excited for this card, and he has absolutely lived up to what I thought he would be. Now, the deck as a whole, is it great? I think if the other decks weren't as strong as they are, like the Blue Steel item deck or the Ruby Sapphire list as strong as always, then I think this list could be super meta defining. I still think it's got a few too many weaknesses for that to matter, but I do think you could take this to a set championship and pull out a win, assuming the room isn't just flooded with like the top tier meta stuff. But if it's more people playing casual decks and fun decks, I think this deck could really stomp because it definitely has a lot of potential. So I want to take a look at some of the cards in it. First, I want to look at some of the new cards we got in this set. We do have a new Mulan. This is a really nice 1-drop to play, as it's essentially just, and not scry, I guess what would you call it? Cycle. Yeah, a cycle option where you draw a card and you discard one. We had a Simba who did this exact same thing, but Mulan shifts into her bigger form, which we are running in this version. Looking at a few of the other new cards, we are running both I've never seen this movie, so I don't know how to pronounce this character's name, so apologies if I butcher it. Denhi, and Li Sheng. The only non-Ruby Steel card we are not running is this Mulan Imperial General. I tried it a bunch, and it's just... So it's the same shift as the Triple Shot Mulan, which we are running. And it is evasive, and that is the one thing that always kind of worries me with this deck, is it's a challenger deck, and if they have evasives, we don't really have any good ways to deal with evasives, so I do kind of worry about that, but in the testing, it just never worked out. So one of the quote-unquote weaknesses of this deck is that if they don't exert characters, if they don't give you an option to challenge, then your cards can't hit them. Well, in theory, this Mulan should solve that by giving everyone the ability to challenge ready characters, but she herself still has to be capable of challenging another character, so if you can get her to work, by all means, go for it, but when I was testing this card out, it never panned out, so I ultimately cut it. However, Denahai is very good. The resist 2 puts in a ton of work, especially against steel decks. He's immune to Storm Rage on, and he works really well with the Mushu. He gets another resist 2, so he gets resist +4, which is awesome. So he's been really good. And Li Sheng, I really wish his second effect was something else. It's just kind of weird that he has to get damage to then hit harder, because hitting for 2 really isn't that much for a 3-drop that can't even challenge in the next turn. Sometimes it does come in handy, though. Sometimes you can hit something small, he'll get 1 piece of damage on him, and then he's hitting as a 4-3. That's really nice. But his first effect, the ability to challenge ready characters, is huge, especially in a deck like this. He's also a captain, so there are times I've put out Smee on 2, follow up with Li Sheng on 3, and now the Smee doesn't take any damage, so I do really like him. I really don't think he needed to be uninkable. They very much overvalue this effect, this whole challenging ready characters. And don't get me wrong, I understand it's a strong effect and you don't want to just jam it on everything, but this is a dual ink card. This is a card that is locked to this color pairing. It can be strong. Like, there's no reason for this to be uninkable. And I kind of already gave him his flowers, but let's give one more look at Mushu, as he is the reason to be playing the deck. he's just great. He can turn unwinnable situations suddenly into winning ones, where normally it's like, well, I'll never get there because I have to challenge everything. And I've, in some of my commentary moments, I've said that too, that, hey, how do you come back here when you have to spend all your time challenging your opponent? You're still on 0 lore. But Mushu flips that and says, well, actually, I'm going to gain you lore while you're challenging. I can't praise this card enough. I wouldn't have minded 2 lore. I think he probably could have gotten away with that. Maybe they thought that'd be too strong. And to be fair, you're not really going to be questing much with him anyway. Usually I leave him up protected or he's going in challenging. So perhaps he didn't need that. But yeah, I just absolutely love this card. So let's talk about some of the other cards we have for support to fit this challenger theme. We have Captain Hook as well as Mickey Mouse for the 1-drops. Mickey, I think, could be really good in this kind of blue steel meta if you're expecting a lot of Storm Rage on sung by turn 1 Bells or Cindy's. Him being able to weather that with the resist +1 is huge. You may even want to cut the hooks to put in a full 4 Mickey. Queen of Hearts is in here because I was originally playing, I am playing her big version. I actually really like the big version. I don't find that the shift line ever works out very much. It just always feels very awkward. It's never come up in a game where I've felt good about it. But there have been plenty of times having challengers on board, I just slap her down turn 5 just to get some card draw, because that has always been this color combo's biggest weakness is card draw. We're not running Whole New World. You absolutely do not want to give your opponent more cards in hand because this color combo can be tenuous as is. You do not want to give them even more advantage. Speaking of card draw, that's why we're running 4 of the Beast Tragic Hero. Yes, they can disrupt this with steel hits. Yes, they can disrupt this with sapphire coils and brawls. He's definitely feeling weaker than ever these days. I'm honestly surprised his price is still so high, but it's a source of card draw if he can stick around. And our final source of card draw is the Dinner Bell. I was a bit skeptical about this first because it's uninkable, but testing it, this actually works quite well because you have some bodies that will take some damage. I think there's a game where I got a Maui, he ran in, took something out for 4, took out like a Scrooge McDuck, and then I just Dinner Belled it and then got 4 cards off of him. That felt amazing. Speaking of the challenging theme, Maui has always been a great card, but when Maui gets resist 2 and gains 2 lore, now you're like, wow, this card's even better than normal. Goes in with the Super Goof and Calhoun. Mushu's effect stacks with their normal lore gain. So if a Calhoun banishes something with a Mushu on the board, she's going to gain 4 lore from it. You're going to see that in some of the matches I show you. Super Goof, he's going to gain 2 lore from challenging and then another 2 from the Mushu if he can banish it. So speaking of banishing, one thing we have to help aid that is the Ruby Chromicon. I've actually really enjoyed having 2 of these in here. I tried other versions of attack-based items like Maui's Fish Hook and the Staff, and it just got too expensive having to pay for those every turn, but the Chromicon, you can just exert it, no additional ink required, buff up your characters, and it makes a big difference. Li Shang suddenly hitting for 3 versus 2 is a big difference. Calhoun being able to take out a Daisy Duck in 1 shot makes a big difference. So I've been really happy with that. It's me, one of the best 2-drops in the game. This Queen of Hearts versus this Queen of Hearts, if you prefer the rush, you can go in on this one. This one's okay. On a few rare occasions, it's like, oh wow, I've got a 4/4 for 2 cost. Feels great, but I don't think she's necessary by any means. The Doc is in here. I've kind of gone back and forth on Doc. Sometimes he comes at the right time and you're like, oh good, a way to refill my hand. Other times you draw 2 of them and your hand's full and he just sits in your hand and he's a brick. So don't be afraid to jam him out in those situations. Pete's, of course, just pretty mandatory to help protect your board. This Mulan I really like as a shift target for this Mulan. It really helps protect against steel matchups. Can be susceptible to Ruby, of course, but it's really good against the steel removal. And this Mulan, when you shift her, she's great. When you can't, not so much. However, and you'll see this in some of these matches, with the Mushu buff, that not only she protects herself with the resist, not only is she gaining lore, but with something like the Chromicon as well, it's still anytime she banishes something in a challenge or deals damage to it, she still does her triple shot ping effect. So even if you buff her by 1 with a Chromicon and she hits for 3 and then she can hit 2 other things for 3, it's pretty good. I like this a lot. Scar is just kind of in here as an extra way to clear. He's really funny if you can ever get him with a Mushu on board and a bunch of targets. He gets resist every single time he challenges. So the first time he challenges, he'll have resist +2. He'll ready. Going again, he gets another resist +2. He has resist +4. So you can have a Scar, if they have an exerted board, just go bam, 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 and take the whole board out, and he's getting 2 lore every time he does that. The Scar Mushu combo is so fun when it works. Couple copies of Be Prepared, because sometimes you're just not going to be able to challenge your way out of a fight, and you need to just hard clear the board. Brawl has never felt great in this deck, and I think it's because more and more stuff is getting higher willpower. Again, they put a Bell out on turn 1, a 3/3 Brawl doesn't work on her, and we have no way to manipulate their strength value. So, like, Brawl's okay, but I don't love it. And last but certainly not least, 2 copies of the RLS Legacy. I don't think any of the Steel or Ruby locations are amazing, but I do think RLS is probably one of my favorite. Yes, it's uninkable, but it's 2 lower, it's got 8 health, so it's at least going to take them a while to chunk through it. And while it's insanely expensive to move someone there the first time, it does make any character there evasive, so it does technically give you a way to deal with evasives. Let me show you how fun this deck is in practice. As a reminder, as we take on the Ink Table AI, the AI is not amazing. They will often make some very strange and baffling decisions. So, as always, take these matches with a grain of salt. This is not meant to be optimal testing. It's just meant to give you an idea of how the deck can do. So we're going to go first here. You can see I use Mulan to kind of just scry my hands. And I am set up for a Smee Li Sheng play if I want to go into that. There's that turn 1 Bell. That makes questing oh so difficult. Calhoun is also another great turn 2 play. One of my favorite cards to see there. So I go ahead and quest with the Mulan. I guess I was just happy if the thing with the Bell is like they can just sing Storm Rage on anyway if they have it. So it's like I guess I figured, well, I'm going to lose the Mulan anyway. So here, I just put out the Legacy just to put some passive lore threat. You can see the Li Sheng taking out the Tipo. Unfortunately, they had, Along Came Zeus. And then they send the Pete in, but hey, my Li Sheng's still sitting there. Now see, here's one of the quote-unquote issues with the deck, that I have no card draw in hand. I'm just essentially in top deck mode. So I've kind of got a weird choice. I can put out a Maui, which can't do much until I can challenge something. Another Maui, feels bad. Luckily, as they play their free dime, is it just me or they always seem to have that dime? Luckily, we draw into a queen here off the top. But I can also just use the dinner bell, which is what I decided to do right there. So that Maui hit for 4, and I just turned him into 4 cards in my hand. Kanai is no match for the power of Zeus. That's okay, because I'm saying, hey, if you're going to use the Zeus on that, maybe that means my beast is free to draw extra cards, which, yep, you better believe he is. Here's one of those weird instances where I kind of have the docks when I don't want them. So at this point, yeah, I'll just play one out just to get another body on the board. And Doc, at least with a Ruby Chromacon, can hit for 2. Our opponent has 2 lore on the board. Holy moly. So we're going to go in, take down the Tamatoa again, dinner bell the Maui again. Okay, now we're keeping our hand healthy. And the Li Sheng can go in with the Flaversham. Now I need to just put on some questing pressure of my own, realizing, okay, we're going to be in trouble. Here's a big Tamatoa with a dime. Luckily, they didn't have enough to trigger at that turn. And this is probably a turn I'm going to be prepared. This is an instance where I don't have a clean way to take out this Tamatoa, so just be prepared at the board. You can also see I have Robin Hood down there. In the original version of this list, I did try the Robin Hood and the Shift Robin Hood, and it was fine. It always is fine. It's definitely felt weaker these days than ever before. He just didn't stick around the way he used to, so maybe that card has had its time, which kind of makes me sad, because on one hand, I kind of like that card. On the other hand, was maybe a little too strong with just the shift line specifically, but sorry, Robin Hood, we'll miss you. So it looks like, okay, well, they're just going to win this game, right? It's 18-12 lore. I can only quest for 3 on board. What am I going to do? Oh, we're going to summon Mushu with Super Goof and use the Ruby Chromacon to power it up and give him the old yuck, gosh. Bam! First goes in Calhoun, 2 lore off of the Mushu, 2 lore off the Calhoun. That's 18. There's Super Goof. Woo! We got it, baby. And as you saw from the end of that last match, in the past, there is no way we're winning that. We're just so outclassed and we're so far behind, but Mushu gives you that surprise. We had 3 lore on board. Our opponent was not expecting us to suddenly just gain 6 lore that turn. That is the power of Mushu, and this card is absolutely worth playing around. Here we have Li Sheng, who I really like taking out. Okay, he puts down an Oswald, and you could argue this is one of those misplays by the computer, but at the same time, they want to try to get the benefit of the Oswald, and that's why they use the Bodyguard and the Tipo. So they protect it for 1 turn, but you can play all the Oswalds you want, but Li Sheng's going to start picking them apart one by one, and we'll give him the Mushu power, so now he gets resist, he'll take no damage from these Oswalds, and now I'm ahead on lore, and I have an RLS Legacy sitting there, which means I'm just going to be getting lore, putting on more lore pressure. Yeah, they went ahead and quested the Oswald, why wouldn't you, because you know this Li Sheng's going to keep taking into him. Now, the Queen of Hearts comes out, so not only am I getting lore, I'm getting card draw as well. I'm at 10 lore. I'm putting on the pressure against my opponent. I think there really is something to this deck when you can make it perform this way. So I do have another Mushu, which, by the way, the Mushu triggers do stack, so I'd highly recommend it. Here you see an instance, I actually just move them to the legacy. Say, just in case you somehow were to try to attack me back, you can't actually hit these characters. Our opponent pretty much has to quest with the Flaversham, but now questing is actually a liability against this deck, as now the Mushu, and with a second Mushu, you will see I can just challenge in and win that way. So gain resist, take no damage, and this will banish, and so I'll gain lore for both Mushus. I got it. Game 3 will be starting again. I actually keep my hand probably just... sometimes it's risky to keep on Inkables, but I see a line I like, which is Calhoun into Li Shang. Those I don't mind playing early as we get out our Li Shang and our Mickey. I believe this is against Ruby Amethyst this time. Yep, there's a Friends on the other side. Now our opponent has a pretty slow start here, which is good news for us. We can just set these characters out and start questing. And we've got Mushu and the Queen. Now, see, this is an instance where you take these with a grain of salt. There is no world where putting out a Flynn Rider there when my Li Shang can just challenge it was the right idea. So I don't really know what the computer was thinking, but they did it nonetheless. So here comes the goat. Here comes another Li Shang. And as I can keep challenging with this Li Shang, it doesn't matter, he gets banished. I'm also getting card draw off the Queen. And a lot of times I will just let the Queen sit there and generate card value for me. We're going to send Li Shang into that Flynn as well. Take some damage, so now he'll trade with Medusa if it gets to that point. We keep getting our card draw. Medusa opts to take out Mickey, which is 100% the wrong choice. They should have taken out Li Shang. This is a great example of why it's not great on the computer. Here comes Maui. He's going to draw us a card off the Queen of Hearts. Would be a great dinner bell. There goes Li Shang. Draw another card. And part of the reason I left this match in here, even though there's a lot of kind of weird choices by the computer, is that there is also... You're going to see how close this lore gets. Even though it seems like we should be winning this and we're ahead right now. And again, I'm not questing with the Queen. I don't want to expose the Queen because I believe part of the reason I'm winning right now is the card draw. So our opponent shifts the Sisu, goes ahead and banishes. Kanai is reckless. He'll be forced to challenge. I could have challenged with him there, but I got greedy and I wanted the lore off the Calhoun, especially with the Mushu. They do quests, they hit Be Prepared. It's 14-9. Like, they've actually caught up a little bit. And remember, I don't have any instant lore without characters to challenge. They follow up with another Be Prepared. And now, this is where I start to run into, well, what do I do? Again, I have these characters that are good at challenging, but if I don't have anything to challenge, suddenly you start to see some of the deck's weaknesses. I can't draw cards off this Queen of Hearts if I have nothing to challenge. And a deck like this that can bounce, they're all the way up to 14 lore, they power up the crab, they take out the Scar. So you can see... These decks can hang, even as all those blunders the computer made, and look at this, they're hanging with us right now, and they can just bounce goat. I can't get at a goat like that. And they're already on 17 lore. I could lose this game. I actually was potentially going to lose this game, but luckily we top deck the Mushu, which means when the Maui goes in, he's going to get 2 lore, and I could quest, or I could just have the Queen challenge and get lore as well. So save it by the skin of our teeth. And here's our final match. We'll be showing you what it's like to go against some aggro, and especially I think we're going second. I'm actually going to save the Mulan shift line in my hand. I would try to always shift off this 4-cost Mulan if you can. As you can see right there, Cindy sang Storm Rage on, Mickey stayed alive, Mickey stayed through it, and Mickey can actually challenge these characters without taking any damage back. If they all ran into him right now, he'd take no damage. So I really like this Mickey. I think the right call might be to cut the 2 hooks and put the Mickey in. Plenty of card draw, especially with the Daisy. So we very slowly take out a Cinderella, get Kanai in there. They challenge just to heal off the Rapunzel. I guess when you're desperate for draw, you can do it, but not the most ideal play. So here I can do the Mulan to set up the shift, or I can set up the Legacy. I do the Mulan. I think I'm probably going to attack the Dwarven Mine now, knowing the Mulan is going to be able to shift and take out the characters. Here comes Strength of a Raging Fire. Mulan takes 4 damage. Luckily, she's got that big, beefy 6 body. And here we go. We're going to shift on and pull out our bow and arrow. And with that shift, she hits for 5 this turn, so I can take out the Rapunzel and then take out whoever else I want for another 5 damage apiece. I decide to hit the non-exerted Daisy. That way, Kanai and Mickey can finish off the other Daisy. And now our opponent brings back the Lilos because they don't know what else to do, and they even pulled one from hand. But this Mulan's effect is still in place. Now we have Mushu, so here comes Mulan. Boom, takes that out, gets the resist, still hits her trigger, and pop, pop, shoots the other two with arrows. Now you're in complete control, despite it being 14 lore. And they can keep bringing back the Lilos, but the Lilos are just a liability now with this Mushu. It's kind of like last set when you had a shark on the board. You didn't want to keep bringing back the Lilos because they were just giving the shark more and more actions and power. These Lilos are legit just feeding my Mushu and getting me more and more lore to rocket to the end. And at this point, yeah, I just go wide and it's over. I could essentially just quest out, but here's Super Goof to give him that final yuck and knock him out. Woohoo! And that, my friends, is the new Ruby Steel Mushu Challenger list. Man, this list is so fun. I really, really like it. I would like to build it in real life. Unfortunately, I don't own 4 of the Tragic Beasts, so I'd have to kind of find some replacements. And I don't think I have a full 4 Mushu yet. So once I get enough cards, though, I'd like to build it in real life. It's fun. Again, you can see the strengths and the weaknesses of it, right? I do think it's better than it's ever been. I still don't quite think it's there to compete with some of the best stuff. It is still kind of one-dimensional, and when you can't challenge, the deck lacks other things. I also think there's a lot of tech cards you could put in this. You could run a whole new world if you really wanted to make sure you got extra card draw. You can run the Robin Hood package. You can run, I find in my Platinum, to take out a bunch of items they have, and we don't really have a ton of items, so you'll mostly be safe from that. So I think there's a lot of angles. You could cut the whole Mulan package if you wanted to just go in on something more reliable. Arthur is a card I would absolutely love to find space for, but I just didn't want to put another 7 cost on Inkable in there, and then you got to play the baby Arthur so you can shift onto him. But his effect, it fits this deck perfectly, right? Gives it extra attacking, plus resist, plus lets him hit ready characters, and then he himself quests for 3. I just didn't know where to fit him in. Like, I just didn't think he was better than Scar overall. As always, you can check out the deck list in the description of the video below. I appreciate you so much for watching. Let me know if you have any other tech pieces you love in here, or maybe if you found some other complete different way to take this deck, this set. But if you have success with it, if you can win a set championship with this thing, man, that would make me so happy, because it is such a cool deck, and they really, really hit the sweet spot on Mushu. Now I just wish they could hit the sweet spot on a lot of these other ideas and design spaces. Anyway, let me know what you think. I appreciate you watching so much. Feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really does help the channel out, and it means so much to me. And until next time, take care.